All right, up next we have Guillaume on the core Geth team, and he'll be doing a talk on turning Geth into a zkVM guest program.
Thanks. Thank you. I've been I'm going to help Cody a bit, trying to get the other buzzword, the buzzword that is currently rampant in the Ethereum world, to get a bit more popularity here at ETHDenver. So far, it's been mostly AI, but we're trying to keep the zkVM dream alive. I assume you watched Cody's talk. So, as a quick recap, we're going to put optional proofs in blocks, presumably this year. There's a roadmap that should have been published today or will be soon, and it's going to, at least in the roadmap, proofs are required to be attached in blocks by 2028. Now, this is like an open heart surgery in the middle of the protocol. So any good engineering practice would suggest to exert more caution, but we're more. I would say there's more of an accelerationist vibe at the moment. So we're going to do it anyway. And as a result, I would say the sensible thing is to reuse as much code, because all those zkVMs, they're still very experimental. I mean, they're getting more mature, but they're still pretty young. There's a lot of issues found with them. And as a result, we want to reuse as much validated code, things that have been running in clients, so that when we drive this car over the cliff, at least we've got our seatbelts on. And that means that not only we need to reuse clients to write those zkVM guest programs, but we also need them fast. And what is a guest program? One piece of detail that is quite important is that today a zkVM is more like an embedded target. So if you know what a Raspberry Pi Zero is, or a FlySwatter, or all those little boards that don't really have an MMU, that don't so memory management unit, they don't really have a lot of advanced features that you have on your laptop. So it's pretty bare bones. And so you have the guest program, which is written typically in C, in Rust, in Zig if you're crazy like me. And it runs then on a VM, and this is a special VM that emulates an architecture. And that VM will produce traces, and then below the hood, there's some ZK magic that I'm not going to get into, the details of which I'm not going to get into, but the idea is that the proof is built from that. Now, if you look at the way a regular client is written today, and of course the reference being Geth for me, because that's what I work on, the program runs there's the program, and then it's relying on something called the runtime, which is a set of functions that are provided by the compiler. And then the runtime itself relies on an OS, an operating system, and then the OS runs on the CPU. And that gives some sort of an impedance mismatch, because if you just put the Geth, the program itself on the zkVM, this is not going to work. It's going to try to make calls, and no one's going to answer those calls, so you can't prove anything. So that's the big challenge right now, to ship something from a language that has not been designed for this. So that would be mostly Go and C#, which means Geth and Nethermind, which are the two most popular clients on the network right now. So there's a bit of a challenge here. So there's really the question at the core is who's going to do the compatibility work. There are two options. I would say the one that sounds the most easy, it was just say, well, we just have to only accept guest programs written in languages that are embedded friendly. Now, it might sound like this is easy, but it's actually not so easy, because even if you take C has a lot of libraries that assume an operating system. Rust also. So you have C without what's called a stdlib, or Rust in a mode called no std. You're not going to, even with the best language you can find, or the most suitable language, you're going to not be able to write any type of program, like every type of program. You're going to be constrained. So that's the drawback. The advantage is that you can ship much faster. The alternative is to request that zkVMs adapt and provide an interface that is kind of like an OS. Then it's pretty nice because you can just dump a binary as if it was running on Linux or Mac OS or Windows, and it should run. It should work. The disadvantage is that it's going to require the zkVMs to implement more logic because those OSs, they work with advanced hardware features like memory protection and things like this. They will need to be implemented. That means that you need to have more support, more hardware support in the zkVM. So more complexity in the zkVM. I would say, anyway, if you look at the way, if you look at ETHProof today, you can see that the average block takes 13 seconds, which is way too slow. The median block is also at 7.8, which is not great if you want to have blocks, a new block time of 6 seconds. So I would say, anyway, there is a need for optimization in the zkVM itself. And that's good. The good news is that there is a lot of room for that. So there's an optimization budget. And I'm arguing the budget should be spent partially on doing implementing an OS interface. But both approaches have their trade-offs. So I don't want to pretend there's one that's obviously better than the other. And then, of course, there's option B prime, aka fit a square peg into a round hole. And in that one, you try to bypass the problem entirely by removing, taking a binary that is designed for Linux and hacking bits and pieces of it to make it fit in the zkVM. So we've made some tests for this. It's kind of working, but I would say it's very experimental. This is not what you want to go in production with. So it's okay for testing. It's okay for optional proofs. But when we get to mandatory proof, this is not an acceptable solution. So what did we do with Geth? Well, we chose the more conservative approach. We're only going to focus on those platforms, those zkVMs, that are supporting what we need. And yes, we're not going to get all the zkVMs, and we're not going to be the fastest. But that's not really the mission of Geth. The mission of Geth is to be the correct reference implementation of the protocol. And so as long as we achieve this, that's fine by us. So we're going to target WASM. We're going to target the one zkVM that did the Linux compatibility implementation, and then we're going to do some experiments with some compiler called Tamago. But yeah, it's more experimental at this stage. So the friendly targets, there's Zyren, which is a MIPS-based implementation, and shout out to them because they've been very proactive in implementing the Linux kernel interface. One thing I forgot to mention is that Linux itself, can do a lot of things, can do multi-threadings, can do all those things, but it's also been designed to work in embedded targets with no MMU and very little features. So it's actually not that hard to implement a Linux, like a reasonable Linux kernel interface. And they did this, and as far as we can tell, it works great. Otherwise, we're working with WASM platforms. And we're going to attempt RISC-V. It's a bit harder because the output of the compiler is not exactly the one that all those zkVMs expect. So there's going to be some tweaks, but of course we're going to try. So this is where we support right now. There's SP1. SP1 goes through WASM, and then they do some RISC-V, like WASM to RISC-V interpretation, or sorry, transpilation. They do this for what's their name? For Arbitrum. So yeah, we're we're profiting from this. Then there's OpenVM, also using WASM, and via this tool called Powder, they're going to like we can also run on OpenVM. And then there's Zisk. So Zisk is a RISC-V implementation. So we're going to use a compiler called Tamago. But it's got some issues, so this is still work in progress. And finally, there's Zyren, where everything works fine for us. So that's encouraging, at least. And yeah, once again, good job, guys. Right. So what is the other things we could do? Because just using the right platform is only half the path. We're going to have to still do some runtime hacks, but we're also going to try to do some Go, some things that are valid in Go that will bring some speed up. So we're going to change the allocator using only Go primitives, and we're also going to try other EVMs like EVM1. So I have some screen captures of PRs that were created. We're going to experiment that, and hopefully we have some announcements to make in the coming weeks. Yeah, so as a way to conclude, it's pretty clear based on this work that the zkVM ecosystem is still maturing, so it will be ready. I think it's the deadlines are a bit aggressive, to be polite, but we can still. I mean, even if we don't make them, it's fine. We can wait maybe another 2 years and have the perfect product. So that's not a big worry. I would say the biggest point here is that if you look at our support matrix, almost none of them are RISC-V. So I think like the message would be the message is it would be a big mistake to do RISC-V, to enshrine RISC-V in Ethereum. There's plenty of other options that make sense. But yeah, that's the conclusion. So that's all for me.